Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
Today we're going to be talking about the books we are most excited for that are coming out in 2025. Welcome to 2025. Like we did this last time, we'll go round robin. So we'll each talk about a book we like and then move on to the next one. And that means that, Barbara, you are first.
My first one is called On the Wings of La Noche by Vanilla L. Torres. Comes out later this month, January 28th. And if you haven't checked out the cover, it's really, really, it's gorgeous. Like, that's kind of how I saw it on we have like a little fairy loot thing, and it was like upcoming books, and I just like zeroed in on the cover, and I was like, I need to Google this, and here we are. I did. So a little bit about it is death waits for Stella, which she goes by Noche. In her human form, she is a lonely science girl grieving the tragic accidental drowning of her girlfriend Dante Fuentes. At night, she is a lechuza who visits her dead girlfriend at the lake, desperate for more time with her. The longer Dante's soul roams the earth, the more likely it is that she will fade into the unknown, lost forever. But Noche cannot let go. That's when a new kid comes to town, Jax, another science nerd like Noche. They connect in a way she can't ignore, seemingly pulled together by an invisible thread. For the first time, Noche begins to imagine a life without Dante. As Noche's heart begins to beat for two people, her guilt flares. Then she finds herself at risk of losing both Jax and Dante, and Noche is forced to question her purpose as a lechuza and everything she has ever believed in. I'm super excited for this because of the lore behind it and stuff. Like, I believe it's Mexican, so yeah, it sounds very interesting, and I'm excited.
It does sound good. I agree with that one. Let's see. My first one is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. That is expected to come out on the 18th of March. I'm excited for it because it sounds like a very unique novel. It takes place in the American West, but it's historical fiction, and there's also some vampires. Little blip in the back of the book, though, is a chilling historical horror novel set in the American West in 1912, following a Lutheran priest who transcribes the life of a vampire who haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Reservation looking for justice. A diary written in 1912 is discovered within a wall. What it unveils is a slow massacre, a chain of events that go back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow, told in transcribed interviews by a Blackfeet named Good Stab, who shares the narrative of his peculiar life over a series of confessional visits. This is an American Indian revenge story written by one of the new masters of horror, Stephen Graham Jones. And I think it sounds super interesting. I
That
love
one
it.
That does
sounds
sound
good.
good.
Yeah. So I'm
I
very
mean,
excited about that one.
vampires say less.
Plus, American Indian revenge story. That sounds pretty
I
exciting
know, right?
too.
That sounds
So-
amazing.
I feel like that's a much needed thing that we've not gotten.
Right?
So
They
I'm excited
deserve
for
all
it.
the revenge plots.
I agree.
So my first one is I should have written like the genres on here. Oh well. I'm pretty sure this one was the sci-fi one. So All the Water in the World by Iron Kafal. I also forgot to put when it's coming out, but this one's coming out like this week. I feel like it comes
Ooh.
out like January
Wow, that's
8th,
quick.
maybe. In the tradition, the 7th, even sooner, 3 days.
Because I think books come out on this. For some reason, I remember some of my books coming out on the 7th.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because this one, I did put mine, so mine are in order of like release date, not in
Okay.
order of like what I want to read. I just put
For
them out
sure.
like which one's coming out at what time. In the tradition of Station 11, a literary thriller set partly on the roof of New York's Museum of Natural History in a flooded future, which sounds dystopian but also sci-fi. All the Water in the World is told in the voice of a girl gifted with a deep feeling for water. In the years after the glaciers melt, Noni, her older sister, and her parents and their researcher friends have stayed behind in almost deserted New York City, creating a settlement on the roof of the American Museum of Natural History. The rule: take from the exhibits only in dire need. They hunt and grow their food in Central Park as they work to save the collections of human history and science. When a superstorm breaches the city's flood walls, Noni and her family must escape north on the Hudson. They carry with them a book that holds their records of the lost collections. Racing on the swollen river towards what may be safety, they encounter communities that have adapted in very different and sometimes frightening ways to their new reality. but they are determined to find a way to make a new world that honors all that they've saved. Inspired by the stories of the curators in Iraq and Leningrad, who worked to protect their collections from war, All the Water in the World is both a meditation on what we save from collapse and an adventure story, with danger, storms, and a fight for survival. In the spirit of the mixed-up files from Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler and the Parable of the Sower, this wild journey offers the hope that what matters most, love and work, community and knowledge, will survive. It's giving the 100 vibes to me, so I really want to read it.
That was also a book.
I see, and I didn't know that was a book. See, now I need to read that book. But I feel like when I've watched a show or movie first, reading the book isn't as satisfying for me.
I've heard the book is completely different though than the
that might be okay.
The show. Like maybe the first season was like similar, you know, and then it kind of just like veered into its own thing.
Gotcha. I just feel like I can't not picture the characters that they've already made versus like if I read it first, then I get to like create the world and then I get to see, oh, does it line up or not?
I don't know if it's kind of like the World War Z, like that book versus that movie where they just took the overall plot and then added characters, because I don't believe the book has anything to do with the movie as far as like characters.
Gotcha.
So I think it's more like that, but obviously if people know, please correct me if I'm wrong. But
I will have to,
and they will.
Also, just to tell you, you hesitated when you said Leningrad. That is correct. That was the name of one of the many former names of St. Petersburg, Russia.
Okay.
Lenin named it after himself when he was in power.
Oh, well, the more you know.
Yep.
Since Laura mentioned it, my list is in order of when it's released per. So the first ones are YA, and then when I switch over to like the new releases back up in January would be adult. So that's how my list is broken. Not genre, but so yeah, that's how my list is broken down, and not genres, but it is release order per YA versus adults. So my second one is Under the Same Stars by Liba Brea. Super excited because I love me Liba Brea. I've read all of her books. I've never not read one of her books, and so we will continue that by reading this book. And this comes out on my birthday month, February 4th. And yeah, boop, 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 boop. And this is a sweeping mystery spanning past and present, featuring 3 teens from 3 different periods and the sacrifices they make in the name of a better world. As meaningful as it is action-packed, obviously it's from Liba Brea, comes an evocative and groundbreaking young adult historical mystery that examines truth, rebellion, reconciliation, and what must be sacrificed for a better world. So this takes place in like 3 time periods. I believe it's like 1940s Nazi-occupied Germany, 1980s during the falling of the Berlin Wall, and then 2020 during COVID times. So it's very interesting, and I'm super excited, and I love her writing. I love her characterization. She always comes out with poignant things during like what's happening during our current times, and so I love her. If you haven't read her books, you really should. But I feel like I'm always saying that about her books, so what's new?
So my list is not organized in any way, shape, or form. It's just pure chaos. I
like
found
Michael.
books that I wanted to read, and I put them on the list.
And Lauren.
So
I thought yours was in a semi order. So is that how it goes? Like I'm the most organized, then Lauren, then Michael. That tracks.
My thing is like my default is like Michael, and then I have to work really hard to like do it the other way.
I just stuck with the default and just like, oh, this book sounds interesting. Put it on my list.
I'm Hermione. Lauren is Harry. Michael is Ron.
I'll take it. My next book also comes out Barbara's birthday month. It is The Bones Beneath My Skin by T.J. Klune. That is expected on the 4th of February of 2025.
I'm excited for this one too.
I really enjoyed the one that we read on the podcast, The Whispering Door, and this one sounded super interesting. Little tidbit is, in the spring of 1995, Nate Cartwright has lost everything. His parents are dead, his only brother wants nothing to do with him, and he's been fired from his job as a journalist in Washington, D.C. With nothing left to lose, he returns to his family's summer cabin outside the small mountain town of Roseland, Oregon, to try to find some sense of direction. The cabin should be empty. It's not. Inside is a man named Alex, and with him is an extraordinary 10-year-old girl who calls herself Artemis Darth Vader. Artemis, who isn't exactly as she appears. Soon it becomes clear that Nate must make a choice, let himself drown in the memories of his past or fight for a future he never thought possible, because this girl is special, and forces are descending upon them who want nothing more than to control her. Which I think sounds super interesting. Love the Star Wars reference too. That's kind of fun. So I am excited for that book coming out next month.
I like TJ Klune too. So that was, I didn't put it on my list, but I'm also looking forward to that one. My second one comes out 10 days from the recording date, January 14th. It's Lightfall by Ed Crocker. And the summary is no humans here, just immortals. So Barbara might like this one. There are vampires, Barbara.
Yay, yay.
Their politics, their feuds, and their long buried secrets. For centuries, vampires freely roamed the land until the Greys came out of nowhere, wiping out half the population in a night. The survivors fled to the last vampire city of First Light, where the rules are simple. If you're poor, you drink weak blood. If you're nobility, you get the good stuff. And you can never, ever leave. Palace maid Sam has had enough of these rules, and she's definitely had enough of cleaning the bedpans of the lords who enforce them. When the son of the city's ruler is murdered and she finds the only clue to his death, she seizes the chance to blackmail her way into a better class and better blood.
Love
She
that
falls
for her.
in with the leeches, a group of rebel maids who reign in the worst of the lords. Soon she's in league with a sorcerer whose deductive skills make up for his lack of magic, a deadly werewolf assassin, and a countess who knows a city's worth of secrets.
This
There's
sounds like
just
my
one
book.
problem. I know, right?
I have to stop you. This sounds amazing. Okay,
Right?
continue.
It's like, we should read it for the pod.
I'm
There's just
down.
one problem. What began as a murder investigation has uncovered a vast conspiracy by the ruling elite, and now Sam must find the truth before she becomes another victim. If she can avoid getting murdered, she might just live forever. So this one I'm super stoked about. It comes out really soon, and if somebody wants to recommend it for the podcast, we can read it.
Right? This, I feel like supernatural beings are coming back, and this is everything I love. I love supernatural crap.
Well, this one has like all the like politics, which I like,
Yeah.
and I mean,
There's,
I hate politics, but I love reading about them like in
Right.
this way. Yeah, I think it sounds good.
I don't mind, like, I feel like I've gotten a bad rep for saying, like, I don't like political. I don't mind it if they can break it down for stupid me, because if you do it too high intense political wise, like, my little
Yeah.
brain can't process that information, and then I get a little bored. But, like, if you throw in, like, vampires and werewolves and wizards and witches and stuff like that,
Exactly.
and make it like that, maybe I can understand it better.
I feel like it also is like when it's like and I love Brandon Sanderson, but when it's like a Brandon Sanderson level high fantasy type situation where you're having to learn a whole world and all of
Exactly.
the characters and all of the world rules on top of like a political system that is not like what you're familiar with, it's definitely a lot at times. So I get that.
Correct. I struggle, Beth. Okay, my next one is, I'm going to fangirl, so I apologize now, but you guys are listening, so that's, I guess, your problem. Oathbound by Tracy Dion, that comes out March 4th, and this cannot come out soon enough. When she announced it and it was so only 2025, I about had a heart attack because I had to wait this long. But anyways, it's the third book in the Legendborn series. Super, super excited for this book. I'm not going to say anything about it because if I read the back, it ruins the first two novels. So if you haven't read the first two novels, I don't want to do that because I will be doing a disservice for you. But it's another one that I feel like harped on. You should read the book series. It's a retelling of the Arthurian legend with magic, and the magic system's so cool, and the characters are amazing. It's just so great. And Michael and I also had the privilege of meeting Tracy, and it was magical and everything. It was amazing. She's super nice, and I was trying to control myself to not fangirl. I think I did a decent job, but yeah, so that was so cool to actually get to meet her and talk about her book. So that was so exciting, and I'm so happy that this is finally coming out, and I'm counting down the days.
Let's see, my next one. Oh yeah, the one that we all three wanted to read. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab.
I feel like we have a lot of
Yes.
vampire books coming.
I'm excited about
resurgence, and yeah.
I think you might be right. Yeah, let's at least, this is what, the third one
Third
we mentioned?
one, yeah.
I like V.E. Schwab too. We've read, and I almost bought another V.E. Schwab book the other day, and then I realized it was like thick with 2 C's. And I'm like, I can't.
I love me some thick.
I do
Barbara and I
too.
also had the opportunity to meet V.E. Schwab.
Mhm.
She was
Oh my
also very
goodness. I
nice.
didn't know
Oh
that.
my gosh, I definitely fangirl as well. I feel like I had little heart eyes when I met her. I was like, I
Why
love
did
the
I
way you
not
write.
know that you met all these
I thought
amazing
you
people?
did. I thought we told
No.
Yeah. Well,
you.
we met them at YALLFest earlier or at
Yes.
the end of 2024.
Oh my
Is
gosh,
this
Lauren,
in
next time we should
Charleston?
do this. Yeah,
Yes.
we should do this for the book
I
club.
knew you
Book
were
club
going to
The
podcast.
podcast.
Charleston. I knew you were going to Charleston, but I didn't know specifics of who all you were meeting. And
Yeah.
I feel like we should have a podcast trip for some
Yeah,
type
and then
of
we can do like
convention.
not
And
live, but like
we could do
hotel
lives.
recording.
We could do like
We
social
could.
media lives for
Yeah,
people.
we could. Wouldn't
Meet
that
and
be
greets.
fun?
This is the
Yeah.
Badass Literature Society. We're standing here with Tracy Dion. Tracy.
Not like
She'd be
that.
like, what the fuck?
Not like that. Just like us recording ourselves and our
Yeah.
experiences.
Right, I know what you meant. Yeah,
We
that would
can't
be
make
fun.
TikTok
I
'cause it might
told
not be
Barbara and I talked
posted.
about this while we were in Charleston. It
Yeah.
would be fun to do this next time with you also and have
Yeah.
a podcast trip.
Anyways,
But anyway, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab.
we
Set
heard
over
we
five.
heard about her talking about it. That's another thing. Sorry,
did.
Michael, you might want to mention that.
We did hear her talking about it. I think for the first time, maybe. I don't know. But she talked about it at her. She was the keynote speaker and talked about
She
it there.
was. I don't think she mentioned. Well, I feel like she's mentioned it, but maybe not in detail of what she went during the speak.
No.
What is that called? A note.
The keynote?
Keynote. Oh God, English.
Anyway, it's the little snippet is set over 500 years. This tale of 3 sapphic vampires is a story about hunger, rage, and the ways in which women are told to be satiated even when they aren't. And it sounds really good.
It
Yes.
does.
We're all 3 excited about it, so we're probably going to read it for the podcast.
I
would
know.
assume.
Be like, you know what? We're just gonna do an executive decision and just pick this one since we.
But I want to do
it's-
Lightfall too.
Well, we can do all of them. The world's our oyster.
Fair enough. All right, you two are probably going to disagree with my next one, just because of the author. However,
no, say it ain't so, Lauren.
I know Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix, and
no,
I know.
My
okay,
heart.
but I just bought another Grady Hendrix book. I think it's How to Sell a Haunted House. I haven't read it yet, so this recommendation is going to be pending that one is not like the vampire one was. The Southern Guide to Slaying Vampires.
Is this a YA? Because I know he writes for both YA and adult.
I don't know that I looked at the genre on this one. So like this I put in here because I do think it sounds good. However, it's going to be pending if I like the one that I just bought because I bought it and didn't remember. I don't pay attention as much to the authors as I should, I guess. Anywho,
I have
This one is
PTSD from
it is
him.
an adult book, Lauren, just for your reference.
yeah, it sounds pretty like that, but you know.
Okay.
There's power in a book. They call them wayward girls, loose girls, girls who grew up too fast, and they're sent to the Wellwood home in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to have their babies in secret, give them up for adoption, and most important of all, to forget any of it ever happened. 15-year-old Fern arrives at the home in the sweltering summer of 1970, pregnant, terrified, and alone. Under the watchful eye of the stern Miss Wellwood, she meets a dozen other girls in the same predicament. There's Rose, a hippie who insists she's going to find a way to keep her baby and escape to a commune. There's Xenia, a budding musician who knows she's going to go home and marry her baby's father. And Holly, a wisp of a girl, barely 14, mute and pregnant by no one knows who. Everything the girls eat, every moment of their waking day, and everything they're allowed to talk about is strictly controlled by the adults who claim they know what's best for them. Then Fern meets a librarian who gives her an occult book about witchcraft, and power is in the hands of the girls for the first time in their lives. But power can destroy as easily as it creates, and it's never given freely. There's always a price to be paid, and it's usually paid in blood. So I think it sounds really good. It comes out January 14th also, so really soon. I'm probably going to read the other one first, or maybe I'll just jump into this one and see if I want to read the other one or return it. But the fact that like this is also, I mean, this obviously is not historical fiction, but these homes were like such a thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess the premise of the story of the wayward girls, pregnant, hidden, whatever, like that happened, probably is still happening some places. Right. And so it's like the documentary or I don't remember if it was Netflix or what, but basically it was finally shedding light on all of these wilderness camps that parents would send their wayward children to, and then they'd get abused. Like that was a thing. Like I experienced similar situations, I've heard a lot about it. But anyway, so the fact that this is kind of based on something factual, but also obviously we've got the witchy spin. I'm curious to see how it goes. And I know you guys aren't Grady Hendrix people, and this might suck too, but his books always sound so good.
All of his books sound good, and then I remember it's him, and I'm like, oh, trash. So I'm like,
It does. I mean, it's interesting.
I'll keep you posted.
St. Augustine.
Let me know. I know, I do think it's interesting since we've literally been there. My next one, Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven, comes out in March 4th. The little blurb is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue meets This Is How You Lose the Time War, two books I absolutely love. In this fantastical love story that defies death as two souls reincarnate through the centuries. They've loved each other in 1,000 lifetimes. They've killed each other in every one. And it's funny because I remember Lauren mentioning wanting to read a book that kind of sounded like this. And I was like, oh, look, I found one. You just have to wait till March. Anyway, Evelyn can remember all her past lives. She can also remember that in every single one, she's been murdered before her 18th birthday by Arden, a supernatural being linked to her soul. The problem is that she's quite fond of the life she's in now, and her little sister needs her in order to stay alive. If Evelyn wants to save her sister, she'll have to find the centuries-old devil who hunts her through each life before they find her first. Figure out why she's being hunted and finally break their curse, and try not to fall in love again. So I'm all about this type of stuff.
This does sound like one I would like.
Right. Hopefully it's good.
It sounds interesting. I agree. All right. My next one is An African History of Africa, From the Dawn of Humanity to Independence by Zainab Badawi. That comes out on January 14th, 2025. This one's nonfiction, so it's the departure from fiction for my list. It sounded super interesting. I recognize that historically I know quite a bit about Africa, but not as much as I'd like to, and especially not told from the perspective of Africa as opposed to from the perspective of others. And when I read about this book, it immediately reminded me of A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, which is one of my favorite books about American history, and it just sounded fascinating, so I added it to my list. I'll read the little snippet. Everyone is originally from Africa, and this book is therefore for everyone. For too long, Africa's history has been dominated by Western narratives of slavery and colonialism, or simply ignored. Now, Zainab Badawi sets the record straight. In this fascinating book, Badawi guides us through Africa's spectacular history from the very origins of our species, through ancient civilizations and medieval empires with remarkable queens and kings, to the miseries of conquest and the elation of independence. Visiting more than 30 African countries to interview countless historians, anthropologists, archaeologists, and local storytellers, she unearths buried history from across the continent and gives Africa its rightful place in our global story. The result is a gripping new account of Africa, an epic, sweeping history of the oldest inhabited continent on the planet, told through the voices of Africans themselves. I'm really excited about this one. It comes out in 10 days, well, from the day of recording. It will come out the day before you're listening to this. But I'm super excited about this book, and I've already pre-ordered it on Amazon. So
it does sound really interesting.
Yeah,
it does.
And you're right. We don't have a lot of schooling of this, and it's also in a Western perspective. So
right, and that's the important part I think about this book is that it's not the Western narrative. It's the African narrative about Africa. So
my next one is by the author of the book that we're reading for this month's podcast, Freida McFadden. But this is going to be her newest one. It comes out January 28th. It's called The Crash. The summary is, the nightmare she's running from is nothing compared to where she's headed. Tegan is 8 months pregnant, alone, and desperately wants to put her crumbling life in the rearview mirror. So she hits the road, planning to stay with her brother until she can figure out her next move. But she doesn't realize she's headed straight to a blizzard. She never arrives at her destination. Stranded in rural Maine with a dead car and broken ankle, Tegan worries she's made a terrible mistake. Then a miracle. She is rescued by a couple who offers her a room in their warm cabin until the snow clears. But something isn't right. Tegan believes she was waiting out the storm, but as time ticks by, she comes to realize that she's in grave danger. Can't imagine that. This safe haven isn't what she thought it was, and staying here may have been her most deadly mistake yet. And now she must do whatever it takes to save herself and her unborn child. Sounds predictable, but a lot of her stories sound like they're going to go one way and then end up going a completely different direction. So
it's her unborn child is the evil person. Calling it now.
Who knows? But I feel like reading that, I'm like, oh, I know exactly how this is going to end. But I've thought that about pretty much every book I've read by her, and like it hasn't ended how I thought it was going to. So,
Interesting.
It sounds
yeah, we
interesting,
shall
yeah.
see.
Next one, The Scorpion and the Night Blossom by Emily Wen Zhao comes out March 4th. In a world at war with demons, one girl will face the ultimate test when she is forced to enter into an ancient, deadly competition for the chance to save her mother's soul before she loses her forever. The trials are simple: win and achieve immortality, or die and surrender your soul to the, I think it's pronounced Mo, but I'm not sure. Action packed and filled with Chinese folklore. Super, super excited for that as well.
It does sound really interesting. I agree.
Yes, 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 yes.
This is the one I had to scroll up. Yeah, this is the one that I wanted to put on my list, but I
Mhm.
didn't because I knew Barbara was going to put it on hers. So.
Yep. I mean, I love trials. You know, it's just very simple. Is it cliche? Sure. Hasn't been done before? Maybe. But, you know,
Still
nice
sounds
new
good.
spin on it. I
Yeah.
love that kind of stuff. Like, let's all go into a deadly tournament and fight for our lives.
Sounds like a popular TV show on Netflix right now.
I volunteer you as tribute.
I mean, if it's I win immortality, okay, sure.
All right, my next one is They Bloom at Night by Trang Than Tran, and that's expected to come out March 4th of this year.
Mm-hmm.
This is one Barbara is also very excited about.
It's because I have read her other book and she's very good at writing horror. So when I saw that Michael put this on his list before I could put it on mine, we had a very lively discussion. And I allowed him to put it on his list. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
But
I
it
have
sounded
one
creepy.
later that I was shocked that Michael didn't put on his list, so we'll see.
Interesting. But yes,
This
I also am
one,
super excited for this book. But anyways, Michael, continue on.
yeah, it sounded super creepy. I'll read the snippet for you. So, since the hurricane, the town of Mercy, Louisiana, has been overtaken by a strange red algae bloom. Noon and her mother have carved out a life in the wreckage, trawling for mutated wildlife that lurks in the water and trading it to the corrupt harbor master. When she's focused on survival, Noon doesn't have to cope with what happened to her at the cove or the monster itching at her skin. Mercy has never been a safe place, but it's getting worse. People are disappearing, and the only clues as to why are whispers of underwater shadows and warnings to never answer the knocks at night. When Harbor Master demands she capture the creature that's been drowning residents, Noon finds a reluctant ally in his daughter, Covey. And as the next storm approaches, the two set off to find what's haunting Mercy. After all, Noon is no stranger to monsters. Dun dun dun.
Yeah. It's
I think it
good,
sounds good.
creepy writing. I'm gonna tell you.
I'm
From the
excited.
first one.
March.
That does sound good. My next one, I don't know that it would be one that you guys would be into as much, but it's called You Are Fatally Invited by Andy Puliego. I don't know how to say his name. I just butchered it. It's like Ande. How would you say that? Because it's like not Andre. It's not Andy.
To be Ande.
Ande Pliego. We're going with it. So the summary: an exclusive thriller writers retreat hosted on a private island turns lethal when one of the authors is found murdered in this twisty locked room mystery. When renowned anonymous author J.R. Allister hires former aspiring writer Mila Del Angel to host a writing retreat at his private manor off the coast of Maine, she jumps at the chance, particularly since she has an axe to grind with one of the invitees. The guest list: 6 thriller authors, all masters of deceit, misdirection, and mayhem. Confess the crimes, survive the tropes. Alistair and Mila have masterminded a week of games, trope-fueled riddles, and maybe a jump scare or two. The perfect cover for Mila to plot a murder of her own. But when a guest turns up dead and it's not the murder she planned, Mila finds herself trapped in a different narrative altogether. One by one, you'll lose your turn. With a storm cutting off the island and the body count rising, Mila must outwit a killer who knows literally every trick in the book. And then the last part says, until only one of us remains. And it sounds good.
That
sounds really
good.
different.
It sounds Knives Out-ish.
Yeah.
I thought like
The
it's
Glass
like murder
Onion one.
mystery, but like a twist on it, and I can't remember when it comes out. I need to look that up. I think it's. I mean, I put these in order, so I believe it is sometime in January or February. But let me check real quick.
It sounds good.
It does sound really good. I agree.
February 25th.
My next one is His Face is the Sun by Michelle Yabez Corpora. Comes out May 6th. Desire, war, magic, monsters. A forgotten oracle will unite them against an ancient enemy. But who will be on the throne when the red dust of Kitara settles? The kingdom of Kitara is gift of the river Itiru. jewel of the desert. Yet a crisis looms on the horizon. The crowns of the north and south were joined through war a generation before, but Katara remains a land divided. The pharaoh is wasting away from a mysterious illness, and the forces in the south and within his own family are plotting against him. As rebellion grows and secrets flourish, an even more deadly threat emerges. An ancient evil awakens among the rolling dunes of the Red Land that threatens to destroy everything in its path. 4 strangers, a princess, a young priestess, a rebel, and a tomb robber, are ripped from their lives and thrown into the conflict. Amid murder and betrayal, magic and monsters, gods and visions, love and war, these 4 unlikely heroes find themselves connected by a forgotten oracle that whispers insistently across the land. Only together can they save the kingdom from destruction, but when the bloodshed is done, who of Katara's children will sit on the throne? I don't know if I'm saying Katara right, but pronouncing that correctly.
Based on what I was looking at, that sounds right.
Okay, cool. It's Egyptian lore, and I love Egyptian lore. Hee hee.
It does sound good too. I agree. Almost all of these on all of our lists sound good.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are fantasy, but I'm kind of trying to pick more like non-European fantasy. Kind of tired of that, you know.
So that's fair. My next one is another nonfiction book. Tried to diversify my list a little bit this year and pick some different stuff. This one is called One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El Akkad. It's coming out February 25th of 2025. And the snippet for it is on October 25th, 2023, after just 3 weeks of the bombardment of Gaza, Omar El Akkad put out a tweet. One day, when it's safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this. This tweet was viewed more than 10 million times. As an immigrant who came to the West, El Akkad believed that it promised freedom, a place of justice for all. But in the past 20 years, reporting on the war on terror, Ferguson, climate change, Black Lives Matter protests, and more, and watching the unmitigated slaughter in Gaza, El Akkad has come to the conclusion that much of what the West promises is a lie, that there will always be entire groups of human beings that it has never intended to treat as fully human, not just Arabs or Muslims or immigrants, but whoever falls outside the boundaries of privilege. One day, everyone will have always been against this as a chronicle of that painful realization, a moral grappling with what it means as a citizen of the United States, as a father, to carve out some sense of possibility in a time of carnage. So this author's nonfiction debut, very relevant right now. I thought it sounded really interesting.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read it. Well, I'm not excited to read it. That's probably not the right adjective, but I'm looking forward to reading it. I think it'll be a really good book.
Okay, so my next one comes out on February 27th. It's called Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. And here's the summary. And you guys probably won't. This isn't one that you would normally pick up. It's more of a Lauren read. It is June 21st, the longest day of the year, and the life of new mother Camilla is about to change forever. After months of maternity leave, she will drop off her infant daughter at daycare for the first time and return to her job as a literary agent, finally. But when she awakes, her husband Luke isn't there, and in his place is a cryptic note. Then it starts. Breaking news. A hostage situation is developing in London. The police tell her that Luke is involved, but he isn't a hostage. Her husband, doting father, eternal optimist, is the gunman. Dun dun dun.
Is the gunman?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think it sounds interesting. I like this author. I've read her in the past, so yeah. I mean, I feel like it's one that you guys would not instinctively pick up, but you actually might enjoy if you read it or if you were made to read it.
Hint, hint, nudge,
It
nudge.
does. I mean, it does sound a little bit interesting. I'm not going to say it sounds horrible or anything like that.
Trash. No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. That was a joke. Next one is my adults section now. It's called Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Comes out January 14th, so here in a bit.
I also almost picked this one.
A book about a book from one-of-a-kind author, an ingenious blend of sci-fi and literary. This is a novel about what it means to be a storyteller. The brand new tale will delight fans of George R. R. Martin's wide-ranging imagination and Ursula K. Le Guin's sharp world building. Doesn't tell much about the book, but essentially it's this author who's been writing books and it's like not selling well, or it's like small what am I trying to say? People that read books. I don't know. The
like
fans. Those are the words. Audience. Wow. We are struggle busing today, a small audience. And then so she goes and just like writes this other thing just for herself, and it just like turns into a whole massive thing. And then she's trying to like scramble back on like the right, and it just sounds really really interesting. And the book about a book is, I always find that very cool. So it just, yeah, look it up. It sounds really really good.
That does sound good. I agree. My next one is another nonfiction book. This one's called Strangers in the Land: Exclusion, Belonging, and the Epic Story of the Chinese in America by Michael Luau. That's expected on the 29th of April. And here's a little bit about it. In 1889, while upholding the latest in a series of exclusionary laws targeting Chinese immigrants, the Supreme Court Justice Stephen Johnson Field characterized the Chinese as impossible to assimilate with our people and strangers in the land. Today, there are 24 million people of Asian descent in the United States, and yet, as Lau observes them in his riveting, sorrowful narrative, the question of belonging still trails them. Strangers in the Land tells the story of a people who, beginning in the middle of the 19th century, migrated by the tens of thousands to a distant land they called Gumshan, Gold Mountain. Americans initially welcomed the Chinese arrivals, but as their numbers grew on the Pacific coast, sentiment shifted and horrific episodes of racial violence erupted. A prolonged economic downturn that commenced in the mid 1870s and idled legions of white working men helped create the conditions for what came next: federal legislation aimed at excluding Chinese laborers from the country. It marked the first time the United States barred a people from immigrating based on their race. Violence soon crested. The author documents driving out the Chinese residents from towns across the American West, a shameful and little known chapter of American history. This one is, again, not a part of history I'm very familiar with, and I think it's important to learn more about the parts that are intentionally left out of the history books. This qualifies for that. So it's on my list for 2025.
Agreed.
So my next one is The Dream Hotel by Layla Lolami, and it comes out March 4th. And I think you guys might like this one, but we'll see. Sarah has just landed at LAX, returning home from a conference abroad, when agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull her aside and inform her that she will soon commit a crime. Using data from her dreams, the RAA's algorithm has determined that she is at imminent risk of harming the person she loves most, her husband. For his safety, she must be kept under observation for 21 days. The agents transfer Sarah to a retention center where she is held with other dreamers, all of them women, trying to prove their innocence from different crimes. With every deviation from the strict and ever-shifting rules of the facility, their stay is extended. Months pass, and Sarah seems no closer to release. Then one day, a new resident arrives, disrupting the order of the facility and leading Sarah on a collision course with the very companies that have deprived her of her freedom. Eerie, urgent, and ceaselessly clear-eyed, the Dream Hotel artfully explores the seductive nature of technology, which puts us in shackles even as it makes our lives easier. Lalami asks how much of ourselves must remain private if we are to remain free, and whether even the most invasive forms of surveillance can ever capture who we really are. I thought it was timed aptly.
I agree, and I think it sounds like a good book to read too.
Next one, Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambo, comes out January 14th. The premise remind me a lot of Hayao Miyazaki stories, if you're familiar with those. But a little bit is an unassuming Tokyo ramen shop contains a portal to another realm where customers can change their lives for the low price of one regret at a time. A breathtaking magical story that feels like a dream.
Yes, this one sounded really good, and I agree. It did sound very Miyazaki-esque. First, I'm going to point out that I didn't realize when Lauren talked about Lightfall by Ed Crocker earlier that I also have that on my list, so I'm not going to be including that, but throwing out here, hey, that was
My
on my list
favorite,
too.
you're probably like, oh my god, that list sounds so familiar.
You're so right. I was like, God, that sounds like something I would totally like. That's crazy. It's not on my list. Scroll a little bit further down. Oh, look, there it is.
That's funny.
So I'm going to read the next one instead, which is Stag Dance, a Novel and Stories. In Stag Dance, this collection's titular novel, a Paul Bunyan-type lumberjack working an illegal winter logging outfit, recounts how the lonely woodsmen entertain themselves with a dance at which some of the loggers must volunteer to attend as women. Obsession, repressed desires, and betrayal lead up to the big night as the lumberjack groups grows increasingly jealous of Leeson, the prettiest young man in camp, weaving a surreal tall tale that questions the nature of transition. And so that's the main story. And there's some novellas as well. They all deal with gender and gender identity, and especially trans identity. And it sounds like they all sound really interesting. And this is another one I added to my list in my effort in 2025 to read more books written by different authors, and more diverse stories, and trying to incorporate all of that into my reading this year. And I'm very excited for this one.
So is it
Oh,
like a
that sounds good.
novella?
So Stag Dance is technically a novel, but it says like
Mhm.
that's the main story. And then I think it's structured in a way where there's like interludes and there's some novellas that are in between.
Oh, that's fun.
So my one after that is My Friends by Frederick Buckman. I put this one. I didn't even read the summary before I even put it on my list because I just really have loved everything that I've read by this author. It comes out May 20th, so this is going to be the first time that I'm reading this summary too. Because I was like, oh, Frederick Buckman, it's putting it on the list. Don't even care. I literally have never read anything I did not like by him. So
That's funny.
here's the summary for all of us to read for the first time. Most people don't even notice them. Three tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings of the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of the sea, but Louisa, an artist herself, knows otherwise, and she is determined to find out the story of these three enigmatic figures. 25 years earlier, in a distant town, a group of teenagers find refuge from their difficult home lives by spending their days laughing and telling stories out on a pier. There's Joar, who never backs down from a fight, quiet and bookish Ted, who is mourning his father, Allie, the daughter of a man who never stays in one place for long, and finally there's the artist, a boy who hoards sleeping pills and shuns attention, but who possesses an extraordinary gift that might be his ticket to a better life. These four lost souls find in each other a reason to get up each morning, a reason to dream. Out of that summer emerges a transcendent work of art, a painting that will unexpectedly be put into 18-year-old Louisa's care. As she struggles to decide what to do with this bequest, she embarks on a surprise-filled cross-country journey to learn the story of how the painting came to be. The closer she gets to the painting's birthplace, the more she feels compelled to unleash her own artistic spirit, but happy endings don't always take the form we expect in this fresh testament to the transformative power of friendship and art.
That sounds interesting.
That does
It
sound good.
does.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I like that author, so I'm sure it'll be good.
Remind me who that author is.
Frederick Buckman, he Anxious People
Okay.
and
What was the one that we read for the podcast? Was it
That
Anxious?
yeah,
one.
he's
People?
written a lot that I've read. I think I've read more.
The Auto Man, that one's his too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry was one. A Man Called O for Uwe,
Yeah, that's
or
it.
however you say it. Beartown. Like, I love all of his books so far that I've read. So Anxious People that we did for the pod.
Yeah, I like that one. That was a good one. My next one is I had this on my list back in 2024 and didn't come out, and I don't even know if it's coming out in 2025, but this is me being hopeful about it. But it would be Electa the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. It's not even confirmed if it's coming out in 2025, but like I said, fingers crossed. And like I said last year during this time, I need this like Michael Skid needs lotion part duh.
I love you kept the joke in there.
I sure did.
Putting down the universe that you're hoping this comes another year.
Yep.
That's fair. Did you have anything else to talk about that book, or was that
I
it?
mean, I feel like I've already included my my list last year, but it's I think should be the last book in the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir. So I know it was supposed to be a trilogy, and then it changed into whatever fourth book series is called, but I don't know if she's confirmed whether this is the last book or not, or if she's going to continue them or not. But
I guess we'll
it's
see.
the fourth one in the series, and I don't want to give too much away because once again, it's a part of a series. So
fair. My next one is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, which was also on Lauren's list. That's expected to come out the 13th of May. I love Joe Abercrombie, so this when I heard he was writing a new series, I've been super excited about this for a while. He wrote the Blade Itself series and the Age of Madness series. This novel, though, The Devils, will follow Brother Diaz as he embarks on a mission that will force him to work with the worst allies imaginable. But as they're up against flesh-eating elves, it's probably the best that he's got a team of killers and monsters on his side. With this setup, The Devils sounds like the perfect gritty fantasy novel, and Abercrombie's proven track record makes it that much more exciting. Super excited for this one. I think it's going to be It's going to be dark fantasy because his stuff always is. But this one sounds really interesting, so I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, I put this one on my list as kind of like one that I thought that you guys would probably choose, but I wouldn't normally choose.
Mm.
But it sounded good, and I'm trying to read more of like the fantasy that isn't just like the tropey fantasies that I like.
Which is nothing wrong with those either.
I know, but broadening horizons or whatever.
I mean, I'd be down to do this for the podcast. I don't think Barbara's ever read
My
Abercrombie either.
No.
My next book is the one that I'm shocked is not on Michael's list because it is Stephen King.
That's what I said too.
Never Flinch by Stephen King. It comes out May 27th. Sounds really good. I obviously love Stephen King. I know Michael does. I think I've not met very many people that dislike him. So, the summary. When the Buckeye City Police Department receives a disturbing letter from a person threatening to, quote, kill 13 innocents and 1 guilty in, quote, an act of atonement for the needless death of an innocent man, end quote, Detective Izzy Janes has no idea what to think. Are 14 citizens about to be slaughtered in an unhinged act of retribution? As the investigation unfolds, Izzy realizes that the letter writer is deadly serious, and she turns to her friend Holly Gibney for help. Meanwhile, controversial and outspoken women's rights activist Kate McKay is embarking on a multi-state lecture tour, drawing packed venues of both fans and detractors. Someone who vehemently opposes Kate's message of female empowerment is targeting her and disrupting her events. At first, no one is hurt, but the stalker is growing bolder, and Holly is hired to be Kate's bodyguard, a challenging task with a headstrong employer and a determined adversary driven by wrath and his belief in his own righteousness. Another very timely novel.
Agreed. And I am excited for this one also. And I think Barbara probably is too. She also likes Stephen King. I had this on my list originally. I had too many books, and I wanted to shine a light on some of the ones I think people would be less likely to hear about.
Fair enough. Too many books, though. That's not an actual thing.
It's not a thing, but it is when you're talking about a podcast episode.
And my TBR seems to groan at the mention every time I put a new one in it.
You could just call out the stack of books that are not on Barbara's shelf yet in the background for video.
Background, my video, it's to the right of me.
Yeah, you have a stack behind you, though.
Oh, yeah, because I can't find room for them. My next one is The Library at Hellborn by Cassandra Khaw, July 22nd. The Hellborn Technical Institute for the Gifted is the premier academy for the dangerously powerful, the Antichrist and the Ragnaroks, the World Eaters and the Apocalypse Makers. Hellborn promises redemption, acceptance, and a normal life after graduation. At least that's what Alessa Lee is told after she's kidnapped and forcibly enrolled. But the Institute is more than just a haven for monsters. On graduation day, the faculty embark on a ravenous rampage, feasting on their students. Trapped in the school's cavernous library, Alessa and her surviving classmates must do something they were never taught: work together. If not, this school will eat them alive.
Can I read this one with you?
Yes.
This one sounds really
Doesn't
good.
it sound
It sounds so good. Like, I didn't even see this one, but it's like a dark academia. Whatever.
Yes.
Love it.
I love dark academia, and that's literally what the genre is. So
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
yes,
when you
please.
read this to me, when you found it, I was like, this sounds really good. And I hope someone picks it for the podcast.
Man, we have to wait till July.
I know, that's the worst part about this, is waiting for these books.
It's all right. We've got enough books to read in the meantime.
You're not wrong.
So my next one, and actually my last one, is The Witch Who Trades with Death by C.M. Alongi, and that is expected to come out March 11th. Little background: all witches must serve the cruel and immortal Emperor Yakatl. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But after 4 years of terror and abuse, Kana not only kills one of his favorite courtiers with her magic, but also discovers the secret of his power and immortality. He's been making deals with death. And now, so is she. Armed with magic that she doesn't fully understand, Kana flees the Empire and stumbles into a small mountain town filled with fierce warriors that ostracize her for being a witch, despite using her abilities to heal their sick and injured. There, her magic and courage are put to the test as she is forced to stop running and fight back against the Emperor that wants her dead. But every deal she makes with death takes another piece of her soul, and there's only so much Kana can give before she turns into the very monster she's trying to destroy. I thought that one sounded interesting.
That one sounds good too.
It does.
So my last one is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. We already talked about it, but I feel like Michael did not read the summary, and it's so tiny, but it's also like powerful. So I'm going to read it anyways.
I read it different somewhere. So yeah, you should read
Santo
yours.
Domingo de la Calzada, 1532. London, 1837. Boston, 2019. 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, and one grows deep, and one grows wild, and all of them grow teeth. Dun, dun, dun. So anyway, we already talked about wanting to read this, but I felt like that was a missed opportunity to not read the little
I know, it's such a
creepy
short
little
little
thing. It's
blurb.
so short. I know. Well,
What's
and
funny
also
is,
I was
like,
like looking everywhere for a longer one. I'm like, I need more, but
There's
like
not.
there isn't
There's
one.
not. Yeah.
Nope, that's
There's
it. That's
apparently
all you
just the
get.
2 we read because I found the summary I found, and then
Yeah.
I saw yours too.
The only reason
so.
why we know more about it is because she literally talked about it. So I'm like, hey, privilege.
Yeah, that
So
was
is
the
that your
last
last
one
one?
that I had. It was.
Okay, well, I have 2 more and I'll be quick, I promise. My next one is Kata Basis by R.F. Kuang, August 26th. Dante's Inferno meets Suzanne Clark's Piranesi in this all-new dark academia fantasy from R.F. Kuang. Let's see, in which 2 graduate students must put aside their rivalry and journey to hell to save their professor's soul, perhaps at the cost of their own. That's just a little small blurb. I don't want to take too much time, but I like R.F. Kuang. I've read a few of her books. She's a great author, so I'm excited for her next novel.
Yep, I had this one on my list also, but removed it when I saw Barbara picked it.
'Tis mine. And my last one is The River Has Roots by Amal El Motar. Comes out March 4th. And technically it's a novella, so, you know, it's small. So that's why I get an extra one, right? Follow the river Liss to the small town of Thistleford on the edge of Ferry and meet 2 sisters who cannot be separated even in death. And I know I'm going out on a limb here because I do not like fairy books. Absolutely loathe them.
It's true. Yeah.
And this one had fairy in it, and I'm like, no. But I like the book that she co-authored, This Is How You Lose the Time War or something.
Why are you prejudiced against fairies?
You know what? I've tried soul searching for this, and I haven't quite figured out exactly why I loathe them, but I'm pretty sure before fairies were a thing, when I was a young Barbara, I read a lot of fairy books, or like books with fairies in them, and they were atrocious. And I think that's why I remember reading quite a few. So it wasn't just like 1 or 2. Like I read quite a few and I was like, ugh, this trash. And so since then I have like vehemently been against reading books with fairies in them.
But Barbara, you've also read some trash books that had dragons in them, and you still love dragons.
I do. So I haven't read trash books with dragons in them. They just didn't have enough dragons in them. There is a difference.
Okay.
What trash
on a technicality?
No, it's not a technicality.
I'm just thinking of like the ones that were like dragon-ish, like they had dragons, but there just weren't enough dragons.
Exactly.
You didn't like the books.
It's they just didn't have enough, and my thing was like, you need more. So I'm willing to still give some.
So the book about vampire slaying had vampires, but you're still excited about vampires, and you hated that book.
That man just couldn't write women. It had nothing to do with the vampire. His vampire was actually really cool. He doesn't know how to write women, and he only writes women. And he's a trash woman writer. So that's my issue with.
I'm glad that you're branching out and giving fairies another try.
So I would like to point out that last year I had 1 fairy book in my list, and this year I do too. So look at me being so great.
Did you read the one from last year? Was it good?
I bought it, so
and she hasn't read it yet.
I have a lot of books.
Fair enough. I have so many TBRs.
I did buy it. I was actually, when we were doing this, I was going through the list that I had created last year, and of like, I think I had like 12 books on my list. I have bought 10, I think, and have read actually a few of them. So I was pretty proud of myself and kind of wanted to like show off. So there you go.
For Barbara.
Yes. Thank you. Please,
I actually have 1 more because I thought Barbara was going to talk about this book and then she didn't. So I will.
Which one?
Immortal by Su Lin Tan, the author of Daughter of the Moon Goddess.
I saw that one too, but I didn't add it for the same reason.
Comes out in
you
3
said
days.
You were going to put it in your list.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did, you liar. Oh my gosh. You know what? We'll discuss this later.
Well, Immortal sounds really interesting.
Put you in timeout.
It's her new standalone book. It's Tacit's heroine, Li Yen, with striking an alliance in the immortal realm in the hopes of saving the people of her kingdom, Tenaxia. The god of war promises to complicate the mortal queen's goal, especially as their feelings for each other become increasingly complicated. Promising a tense enemies to lovers romance and plenty of political intrigue, Immortal sounds like a great way to kick off 2025.
Mhm.
And it would be, because it comes out
Comes
on
off.
January 7th.
I told you, January 7th. See, I know I have that in my brain. And
In my
bro,
remembering.
yes, and Michael's all like, I'm gonna put all these books in my list. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then didn't let me put him on my list, and now he's like, me. So
That's why you just have to put them on your list anyway, and then we have duplicates.
I was trying to avoid that. I should have just do that next year.
But I believe that is all of our books for 2025, or the reality, probably just a small percentage of the books that we're going to be really excited about.
You limited us to like 12.
Right. There's only so much time people
and then
are willing
my list
to listen
tripled because now I have all these new ones that I liked from your list. So
that happened last year too.
Yeah, it sure did.
So I'll let Barbara close us down.
Have feedback about today's episode? Well, you can contact us by writing to badassliteraturesociety@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM or leave a comment on any of our social handles that Michael shall be prattling off just in a second.
Make sure you're following Badass Literature for free in your favorite podcast app. Give us a rating and leave us a review if they allow you to. Super helpful for us. Also, don't forget to be following us on social media. Our username is @BadassLitPod on both Instagram and Facebook.
And Goodreads. We forgot the Goodreads.
And Goodreads. You're right. We are on Goodreads now. Mm-hmm. And with that, we'll see you guys later this month for our review of The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Mm-hmm. I'm Michael.
I'm Barbara.
And I'm Lauren. Bye.
Bye.